Hello everybody, welcome back to my little corner of the internet where I will talk about the stories of my life, my work both as a comic book author and a translator, my cats Hey Hey and Serengeti, and the occasional movie, book or TV series review and recommendation, as well as some rants if the feeling hits. And today we're going to have a recommendation mixed with a rant because, oh my, She-Hulk broke the internet and this is the best moment to talk about the greenest lawyer that there is. Now, the MCU is 14 years old and it's getting ready to their quinceañera. And yes, I might talk about the whole thing at a future time if you guys want me drawing Iron Man and company in a quinceañera dress, that is. In those years, we have gotten amazing movies, so-so movies that some people love and some people think are horrible, great TV series, so-so TV series, bad TV series, and then the Inhumans that was so bad that it deserves a completely different category to itself. And in those 14 years, of course, we have gotten all kind of criticism about said movies, some quite interesting, some really surface level, and some that apparently are more about targeting the people that enjoyed or still enjoy the MCU rather than the actual product. That is not to say all the hate that certain actors and actresses get just because they breathe. Oh, and in the middle of all of it, the comic book fans who complain about how the MCU is not an exact carbon copy of the comics, and the so-called comic book fans who complain about the MCU not being an exact carbon copy of the comics, and pointing at the moments when it actually is being faithful to the source material. Which means that yes, as I promised last time, let's talk about She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. First, a bit of history. While I know it's very in vogue to claim that it's the woke era that is turning every male character into a female version of themselves, I swear, when the show was announced, I read comics complaining that they had literally turned Bruce into a woman, like Trans Hulk, rather than knowing that Jen is a character of her own. The truth is that She-Hulk is far, far older than the MCU itself. In fact, she was created by Stan Lee and John Buscema way back in February 1980 for her very first appearance in the Savage She-Hulk #1. She was also the last character written by Stan Lee for Marvel until Ravage 2099, 12 years later, but that is not important here. Just a tidbit for those who think that her existence is somewhat against Stan wishes. In any case, the reasoning behind her creation was literally to make sure that the producer of The Incredible Hulk, Kenneth Johnson, would not introduce a female Hulk to the show who would not be under Marvel's copyright. So instead of waiting to see if that happened, they jumped the gun and out came Jennifer Walters. By the way, this was exactly the same reason why we had Jessica Drew Spider-Woman, just to make sure that Marvel owned all the rights to the characters. Her first comic was not that successful and was cancelled after 25 issues. However, that didn't mean the character didn't make an impression, as she was moved from team to team to give some levity to their books because She-Hulk was always a bit more comedic than the rest of the Marvel Universe. And after a stint as a team member of the Fantastic Four, drawn by John Byrne, she also got 3 graphic novels and finally in 1989 a new series for herself titled The Sensational She-Hulk, mostly written and drawn by John Byrne, which introduced the most significant change to the character. She-Hulk is perfectly aware that she is a comic book character and would constantly not only break the fourth wall, but also get into fights with Byrne, her editor, and the readers. She also ended up jumping the rope naked in order to drum up sales, and although her title was cancelled after 60 issues, she still held the record for the longest-running Marvel comic with a superheroine to that date. After that, she would travel from team to team again and would not get a solo title again until 2004, where written under Dan Slott, she focused more in her legal career than in her superhero antics. While she no longer breaks the fourth wall, apparently, the title was still a comedy, in a way a superpowered Ally McBeal. She was still a superhero, of course, and so she still appeared in crossovers and other titles, but in her own title, comedy was the name of the game. Unfortunately, after Civil War II, she got a title that was going against pretty much everything that had happened before. Titled only Hulk, It dealt with the trauma she had endured and her feelings over the loss of her cousin Bruce. Bruce, of course, happened to come back to life later, but that's comics for you. We already know there is no death in comics unless your name is Uncle Ben, and even then you are going to come back every single time that Peter Parker needs a pep talk and to be reminded that with great power comes great responsibility. Anyway, during this time, she was gray-colored and had many fights in her own mind between the different incarnations of herself. The book wasn't bad, but it was a big departure, however, ended up with her going green again. Then she joined the Avengers, written by Jason Aaron, where, for some unexplainable reason, editorially speaking I mean, she was turned into a carbon copy of her cousin, unable to express herself in correct grammar, and far, far bigger than she had ever been. Currently, she got a new ongoing series, this time by Rainbow Rowell and Rogue Antonio, which thankfully has gone back to her comedy roots and her lawyer antics, and of course the MCU show where she is back to beating the fourth wall until it cries for mercy. Okay, now that the history part is over, I am not going to go through every single thing she has done in universe in the comics, because we'd be here for a couple of days. The important part for this is, of course, her origin. Jennifer Walker's shy and unassuming lawyer and cousin of Bruce Banner is targeted by Nicholas Trask, a crime boss, shot and wounded. By mere chance, Bruce was around that he was planning to tell her that she was the Hulk. Why? No idea. I mean, he was being chased by the army who knew who he was, and as a lawyer, Jen might have been safer not knowing, but I digress. So, since they were the same blood type, he volunteered to save her life. But since his blood was gamma radiated, well, mix that with Jen's anger at the attempt on her life, and we got a She-Hulk. This is a bit different from the MCU origin, where she was already aware that Bruce was Hulk, Bruce had already managed to control his anger enough to become Smart Hulk, Professor Hulk, the comics version, would not come into being for a decade or so, and he was smart enough not to offer his radioactive blood for a transfusion. So, instead, their blood mixed by accident, and then Bruce took upon himself to train and teach Jen how to control her new powers. And here is where we get the first problem some people had with the TV series. No, not that the powers came from a little drop of blood, amazingly enough. I mean, seriously, people, radioactivity in real life doesn't need much more than that to kill you, so in comic universes shouldn't need much more than that to give you superpowers. No. The problem was that Jen insisted that she didn't need training. She humored Bruce for a while, yes, but the truth was that she wasn't at all interested in being a superhero, and thus the whole training thing from her point of view was a waste of time. This is absent in the comics because while Jen has gone back to have her law career as her main focus, she has also been quite active in the superhero career, as a member of the Avengers, the Fantastic Four, the Defenders, the Lady Liberators, the Fearsome Four, the Future Foundation, and the A-Force team. Not that she is not an amazing lawyer, as among her clients you can count the X-Men, Spider-Man, and Morbius. She also has a good balance between her two careers, and when she discovered that her strength as She-Hulk was proportional to her strength as Jen, she started working out as Jen. But that is in the comic books. Going back to TV Jen, she doesn't want to be a hero. And, to Bruce's surprise and the internet's rage, she doesn't need anger management training. The speech she gives as to why echoed in many women's experiences, but a lot of people misunderstood it. I'm great at controlling my anger. I do it all the time. When I'm catcalled in the street, when incompetent men explain my own area of expertise to me. I do it pretty much every day because if I don't, I will get called emotional or difficult or might just literally get murdered. So I'm an expert in controlling my anger because I do it infinitely more than you. Which, to the uncontrollable anger of many men on the internet, is an absolute truth. Because see, she is not saying that she has suffered more than Bruce in any way, shape, or form. What she's saying is that she had learned to control her anger before she became a Hulk, where Bruce only had to learn to control his anger once he became a Hulk. Whatever Bruce lived through before turning into the Hulk, and may I remind you, MCU's Hulk origin is not the Eric Bana's movie. We don't know if this Bruce Banner suffered abuse by his father. The truth is that, as a man, he was taught that getting angry was the solution to his problems because that is something that society does. Boys will be boys. Let them solve that in the backlot behind the school. A couple of punches haven't killed anyone, etc., etc. It wasn't until his anger could literally level buildings that Bruce had to learn to control it. And it wasn't an easy learning curve, as we can see by the fact he has a binder about it. Was it a grueling process for Bruce? Sure, no one is denying that. But it was a process that lasted, 15 years? I mean, by the time Endgame came about, he had finally gotten his balance, just like Jen, so it's not as long as the MCU itself, but it was at least up until a year or so after the snap. However, for Jen, it has been a process of a lifetime. Because as she says, clear as crystal, women are raised not to make a fuss, not to complain, not to yell, not to show any negative emotion, because if you do, then you are hysterical, emotional, and you can't be taken seriously. And sometimes, too many times if you actually watch the news, saying no in what may seem like an aggressive manner can lead the woman to die. All that Jen is saying is that she has more experience controlling her anger because she had to do it before her anger was enough to level a building or two. And Bruce understands it and lets it go, because then he moves on to try and teach her what she will need to live as a superhero, despite her insistence that she can just avoid hulking out and go on her merry way. She is wrong, of course. She does need to hulk out, not less than a month after she leaves Bruce. But that doesn't mean she wasn't right about the other part. Now, while Jen has always been a light-hearted character in her own titles, she has also been part of quite some dramatic issues of other teams. Some writers, like John Byrne, did their best to keep her running jokes going even in other titles, especially her tendency to break the fourth wall, although, of course, it was never as comical as in her own books, as pretty much everybody thought that she was crazy when she said she was part of a comic book. Yes, she was Deadpool way before Deadpool even existed. But that didn't mean that she wasn't also capable to have serious arcs and character growth. For example, while at first Jen did the same thing as Bruce, changing from She-Hulk to herself depending on what the situation required, and her transformations were linked to hate and emotions, but still had the same thing every other hero had, a double life. It was not until later when she just stops being Jennifer Walters completely, reminding us She-Hulk when she starts the arc that we are also seeing, if in a slightly different way in the show. Jennifer actually starts believing that she is worthless as Jen compared to all the things that she can do as She-Hulk. In the comics, at first she justifies it as enjoying the freedom that being She-Hulk allows her, not only to be herself, to be more joyful, to be more outgoing, and not think twice about her fears because she is not defenseless. This is a very important thing that is common to both the MCU Jen and comics Jen, as we saw at the very end of episode 3 when she realizes that she is not defenseless against the Wrecking Crew as She-Hulk, in the way that she was as herself. While most people agree that in the comics it's just a matter of preference, the truth is that at some point she was unable to shift back to Jen because of a mind block she had created in her mind where she was convinced by herself that she was worthless if she wasn't a Hulk. It took her years of different story arcs to finally accept herself in both forms and see that she is important no matter in which form she is. And we are seeing that little by little in the show too, the seeds of Jen's insecurity as herself. From her original refusal to become She-Hulk and a superhero, where she insists she wants to make a difference as a lawyer, not an Avenger, despite Bruce's insistence that her life has changed. Then we move on to her life being really disrupted when she has to choose between letting Titania, who has not been named at least up to episode 3, hurt the jurors or out herself as a superhero. And while her friends at the lawyer bar seems to love her and cheer her on, this is immediately seen as a direct negative impact in how she is viewed professionally as she loses her job. Yes, it doesn't matter that she saved the jurors or that she won the case, even if it was dismissed later because, well, she saved the jurors. What matters is that she was seen as unprofessional and a circus freak by her boss. This is, by the way, the first sign she sees that Bruce was right warning her. Her life can't be the same, and she can't avoid hulking out because sooner or later, no matter how good her control is, she will see someone else needing help and she will act because when one is a good person, one can't just let others suffer without helping. In this same episode, after having been dismissed by pretty much every law firm in the city, she gets offered her dream job, but with the condition that she has to be She-Hulk. If she can't be green, she can't work. And thus is when she starts doubting herself, even as she seems to be able to hold her own defending her cousin's former nemesis. Except, as the third chapter proves, she's not being seen as a lawyer by anyone, except maybe Emil Blonsky, but as a sideshow. Worse, at the same time, she finds herself helpless as Jen, and can only defend herself when she remembers that she can turn into She-Hulk. Her face in the reflection at the end of the episode says it all. Despite being in control of her transformations, that doesn't mean that she's in control of her life, nor that she knows whom she is anymore. And that is the important, serious arc of She-Hulk. She-Hulk is a really fun character, which is something that is unfortunately not that common anymore. If the TV series has picked up your interest, I'd really recommend you picking up her current run where we see Jen trying to pick up her life as a lawyer again, as well as some interesting mysteries and her new relationship with old friends and foes. I also recommend the 2004 and 2005 Dan Slott runs, which are the ones that are being used as some inspiration to the TV series when Jen started doing superhuman law more and more, and of course John Byrne's seminal The Sensational She-Hulk, where she discovered that she was at the mercy of writers and editors. I have to say, while the Slott and current Rainbow Rowell run are very fun, I do miss Shulky breaking the fourth wall every now and then to wink at us. She only does that in the TV show now. The Rainbow Rowell current title includes some old baggage that you might not know if this is your first time reading She-Hulk, but it's nothing that a little wiki cannot solve. If, on the other hand, you are not enjoying She-Hulk Attorney at Law, no harm done, as long as you let others enjoy it. If you like the more serious She-Hulk runs, like Hulk when she was grey, they still exist and you can reread them to your heart content. There are more serious MCU series and non-MCU series that you can enjoy. Just let people enjoy what they like, and in turn, they will let you enjoy what you like. And if not, She-Hulk is going to go to your house and rip off all your bagged and slabbed comic books. She will. I want to thank my dear patrons Mitch Hyman, Elaine Ho, Jessica Nelly Riley, as well as my first supporter Tanya Pineda and Amy Sung, who is the greatest human being on the planet, and without whom these videos will not be possible. I also want to remind you that if you want to support these and my other projects and get your name mentioned here, you can do so at patreon.com/Adalisa, with a link on the description, as I know my name can be hard to spell. And with just $1 a month, you will always be thanking in my videos, as well as get access to a ton of art before anyone else. Or you can support me once at Coffee, also linked on my Linktree, and you will get mentioned in my next 3 videos. If you can't support me this way, I also accept likes, subscriptions to the channel, and of course, you sharing the links. I also welcome all your questions, feedbacks, and suggestions in the comments below. This was Adalisa Zarate, and I will wait for you to join me next time with a cup of your favorite coffee or tea as we talk about the villains' redemption arcs, why they are so satisfying, and why I hate it when they get undone for the status quo.